Ah, I see some people.
I see Patrick and Michelle and
Her.
MICHELE.
Oh, well,
Okay, so what we're going to do for this one is I'm going to introduce you, Patrick and Michelle, and then ask you a leading question, and then you can just answer it, and we'll start there for like about 20 minutes, and then maybe some audience questions, and then I'll go on to uh, IWAN and then to Tracy Gansky. So we'll do these three things. I think that'll probably take up the whole 2 hours by the time we're done.
Okay.
Okay, well, hello everyone, and I'm just going to highlight myself as well. Hello everyone, and welcome to our second Iboga panel, all about Iboga. This one is all about Iboga, and we have three wonderful panelists. One couple, Patrick and Michelle Fishley from Soul Reflections, and we have Iwan Morgan from Beauty Heart Awakenings, or did I say that right, Iwan?
Wheaty
And
Heart Awakening.
yeah, and the third one,
Awakening.
Tracy Gansky from Ravella Retreats, and Tracy. So all three of them are going to talk about their experiences with the indigenous teachings and teachers and practices, Bwiti and Congo, and also other things and how it all weaves in. And I'm really hoping that this conversation can be a conversation about um, what we have to learn from shamanic indigenous practices with the medicine. And I think we have a lot to learn from that. Um, so, just to put this in context, I'm going to take a few minutes here and talk about the context in which I see all this. So, human beings have been um, taking plant medicines to alter their consciousness since the beginning of time. In fact, there is a cave painting called The Mushroom Man um, that um, that's on a cave wall that's 9,000 years old, where he's got this mushroom head and he's scratched it on a cave wall. And there have been cultures all over the world who have had different kinds of medicines, plant medicines, that they have used to alter their consciousness and to evolve themselves. And I
Hmm.
think that's like the main reason why these plants exist is to help us to heal and to evolve. But what is so special about Ibogaine and Iboga and the Bwiti and also the Congo, the people in the Congo, the people who have been continuing to work with these medicines, which is mostly indigenous tribes. What is so amazing about it is that, one, they're doing it without the shadow of illegality on them. And, when I have been in really altered states of consciousness, I've been really keenly aware that this medicine is under the shadow of legality, of illegality everywhere. That's a shadow, it's a real thing. And so in a place like the Bwiti, it's a part of their tradition. And so that makes a big difference, I think, in the set and setting overall. And I think the Bwiti have a really important role as a knowledge keepers because they've been continuing this tradition, and we in the West who are now bringing it into clinical practice or into treating addiction or PTSD or trauma um, can learn a lot about this inner journey, the shamanic archetypal elements of it, which
Hmm.
is pretty universal. Different plants open up different things in different ways, but and iboga is without a doubt for me the grandfather of medicine in this whole lexicon of plant medicines. So that's the context I see it in, and I would love to turn to Patrick and Michelle, who have been working with the Briti and apprenticed with them, and now offer retreats. If you can just talk about your experience, like a little bit about how you got into this, working with Iboga and Ibogaine, and then how you connected with the Briti, and what you bring, what's the gift that you have from that, and how you share it now, uh, you know, with your medical experience as well.
Hmm.
Big
Well,
question.
that's a lot there. I'll try to keep it short. So, we're both in the medical field and intensive care units and emerges and other parts of the hospital for so many years. And We saw, what the hospital or the Western medical can do, and at best it's a band-aid for, it can help with physicality, but when it comes to the mind, it's a band-aid at best, and they don't even look at the spiritual component. And, one thing we are aware of is to heal, it's mind, body, and soul. And they go together. They have to go together for complete healing and for that journey of healing. And I mean, like so many others, we got on board many years ago, like 2012, helping with retreats for addiction. That was with Iboga, and I assisted with Gareth as well at that time, and I saw so many things that was happening, from an addiction point of view, an interruption, but we had people coming through with neuro problems like Parkinson's and trauma blasts, and we saw the efficacy on that. It was a couple years into that, I was invited to sit and be the medical supervisor for the traditional Iboga container, and really saw it as a whole package with all these tons of other alkaloids in there, buffering, helping and supporting, managing all our systems to give us that and create that effect that we're all searching for. So we worked with Iboga for a long time, doing that, and we got connected with the Bwiti, connected with Mama Nunu in particular, over in Gabon, right? You want to finish some of that off?
Yeah, no, we've just been really blessed to have some really beautiful teachers. And Katie here, who's sitting beside us, is the person who we go to for all that's mental health as well. So to bring that element, like we have the medical side, but we also need that mental health side. And she has come and been initiated as well. And I think when we get the opportunity to go in deeper, it allows us to use the tool of these medicines from a different perspective, so we can be more precise, and as we learn ourselves and go deeper with our own spiritual work, we understand better how to facilitate a space for people to be able to dive deeper into their healing. So, oh, we can't hear you, Lakshmi.
You're muted, Lakshmi.
I do that all the time. What kind of people are you? Do you work with? You don't work with people for addiction when you work with Iboga, am I correct?
Well, we don't take in acute detoxes anymore. We stopped that, back when we finished the Dose movie. That was like a new chapter where heroin wasn't heroin anymore. Nothing was what it was at once. It's all contaminated. So in a safe way, we'll help people walk off, but in a little bit different way than someone who's with the Iboga, right? So we have them, free of their substances, and free of their mental health substances too, like SSRIs or whatever. We get people free of that, and then they come in, and then we can work on them, because we all have addictions, and they're all addictions of the mind, and it's all troubles of the mind. So, we still work with them, but just from a little different point of view, so we can kind of get in there. Yeah.
Does that mean that certain really serious addictions like fentanyl, etc., are not an ideal? I think the question I'm asking that people might want to know. There's been a lot of questions on Facebook about what's the difference between Iboga and Iboga. What is the difference? And could you talk a little bit about that? What is the difference? Patrick, you both are critical care nurses, so you have that background of understanding medication and stuff, and then you understand the Iboga. What's the difference in how, and what is an Iboga ceremony best suited for? Does it heal PTSD? Does it heal trauma? Does it help you to heal depression? I really would like to understand the scope of it.
Yeah. So, the biggest difference obviously is Ibogaine is one alkaloid, and so we're talking Tabernanthe Iboga is all the alkaloids, and including Ibogaine. Okay,
Yeah.
and so I mean, it depends on where you get the medicine, the strength of the medicine, the clarity of the medicine. It depends. It's dependent on how much Ibogaine is in that. So if you have really good quality Iboga, you have lots of Ibogaine, so it gets the interruption done. So it works from that point of view, But it also really helps go in really deeper. And there's a lot of those, these alkaloids, and they've got about 20 named and started to study them, and they find that a lot of them are buffers for the heart, buffers for other different things. So it's more complete. I always compare it to watching Pavarotti on stage, singing a solo just by himself, and it's amazing, truly amazing to see him do that. Then you add in the lights, the orchestra, the backup singers, and everything, and now it becomes this creation of beauty. And so that's what having the whole Iboga is like. It brings in that whole creation. I mean, this is one plant that stands on its own, needs nothing else to combine with it to work. It stands complete. So.
I don't for Katie has worked a long time with Ibogaine and vets, and then now is working with Iboga and all of the above. So what would you say your
When I think about the Bwiti tradition and I think about African culture in general, especially in Gabon, what I see is a collective culture where all of these people work together. Every single ceremony has people from, villages that are miles and miles away who come to support. And when I think about the full root and all of the alkaloids together, I see it as a communal or a collective experience where each of these alkaloids contributes to something a little bit different, but in the same way that in Gabon it's a collective culture, I see Iboga being a collective experience with all of these other elements and the tradition being weaved into it, which feels so important because the tradition itself is so rich. I think the biggest thing with both, especially with Iboga in the way that we're doing it, is that we are purposefully creating community around it. We are purposefully creating a collective around the tradition and ceremony of this particular medicine, which feels so important. And when I think about trauma, what I see is that oftentimes people who've experienced trauma end up isolating, and we heal in community. And when I look at Ibogaine has been isolated from its community. So I see it on several different levels, and I don't necessarily think that one is better than another. It's just another way to do it. It's another way of experiencing the remembrance of who we are outside of all of the static and all of the noise.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The way that I see it is that there are people with real need on this planet who need to get off addiction, who need to heal from severe things. And however they get the medicine, it's going to help them. If it's Ibogaine HCl, it's going to get them started on the interruption. It's the beginning of the journey. They might do Iboga down the road or something else, ayahuasca. It's a beginning, and it's an interrupter. So that's beautiful. And then the fact that there is a synergistic alkaloid, and it's a little bit like vitamin C versus an orange, right? To put it in very simple terms, it's like that. So of course, the Iboga plant, but the Iboga plant is like is an orange in heaven, you could say, right?
Yeah, and I think whether we are serving Ibogaine or whether we're serving Iboga, we have a lot to learn from the people who have been working with this medicine forever. And I think there's like a want for us to categorize these two things, Iboga and Ibogaine, but they're really the same medicine. So I think what we're really from my perspective, what I see is really a need for a paradigm shift in the way we view health and wellness, and in the way that we view how healing happens. And so an Ibogaine treatment on its own, or an Iboga treatment on its own, isn't the one thing that's going to cure somebody. It's what they do before their treatment. It's what they do during their treatment. It's what they do after their treatment. And it's the kind of support they have, and it's what their soul is ready to heal, and it's what their mind is willing to accept and change and evolve into. So there's no one way. And even when we're in Gabon, there's no one way to do ceremony. There's many branches on that tree. And
Talk about that a little bit, the many branches on the tree, that there's like 152 tribes or fact section, and it's Christian, the Christian root. Can you talk a little bit about how the Bwiti, it's not exactly a religion, but how the Bwiti tradition has evolved in Gabon?
well, Bwiti was there even before they started working with Iboga. And then Iboga was introduced to the Babongo, or the Pygmy, first, and deep in the jungle, and then it came out to the tribes. So, and so all of that, a lot of those traditions, and what we think of the Bwiti is a very umbrella term for some of the tribes are Fang,
Well, you have
Soko.
the traditions so Masoko, like you have the Fang, Asangadia, you have the Sumba, you have Mabanji, you have Mabundi, Ngande.
Yeah.
There's quite a few different ones, and the differences between every one is just that they have a specialty. Some are hunters, some are healers, and they have all these different specialties. It's like going to med school and branching off, and they cross over between each other really beautifully. The Fang have incorporated a lot from the colonialism with the Christianity, or with the church a little bit, and they've incorporated some of that with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great, because it's still, at the end of the day, it's about honoring who you are. But if you ask anyone else in the other traditions who just celebrate the tradition and they keep their faith and other stuff separately, you ask them who is the creator, you ask them all these things, and they're in agreement. It's just one's kept tradition as a tradition, and the other one's kind of melded both together. So it's just so many beautiful ways to honor the creator and honor ourselves.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, sort of expression of individuality, and how people, how we're all like a collective and a community, but we all have our individual gifts and the way we need to express ourselves and share ourselves within those communities. Yeah.
So, whenever people come back I haven't been to Gabon, I'd love to do it sometime, but whenever people come back from it, they are so happy. That's what I see mainly, is how just really happy they are. And I think no matter what the politics and all that going on, about it, there is something here that's very precious and special. And my question to you is, how would that translate into the neo-shamanic medical neo-shamanic culture that is evolving in the West? And we all recognize that you have to bring body, mind, and spirit into it, because healing is happening on a spiritual level as well. And over here, structurally, hospitals and churches are separate entities, and but it's not separate inside of us. So we have to evolve that healthcare system, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think, sorry, that was a long-winded preamble to my question, which is, how does that translate? How can we translate that as a community into how we do ceremony, how we work with medicine here?
Well, I think first we need to recognize that Gabon and that area in Central West Africa, where where, you know, that's ground zero. You know, we all have roots back there. You know, and the sooner we agree on that, the more united we can become, because we are all one. We all come from in those roots and way back. You know, so there's no real separate. The only separation that's happened is we've created ourselves. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say, you know, well, they don't do this, they don't do EKGs in Africa, they don't do this kind of here. Why should we do that? We should use our intuition like they do. And I have talked with a lot of teachers and asked them, you know, being a critical care nurse, I asked them, like, so how do you know this person's right? How do you tell if their heart's right? And they don't have the same machines we do, but they are the machines. You don't have an EKG machine there, but they are reading you. There's certain signs and symptoms that are present when something is wrong with, you know, with your heart or with your breathing or with your toxic levels. They are watching. You know, they are feeling in your body for the blood pressure and how that's working. They're doing the same things. We are just doing them differently. We obviously have things in the West, and by West I mean anything outside of Central West Africa is the others. We have things that influence us that aren't as profound there, you know, especially when you go into the villages and such. So it's so important to have that marriage of Western technology with the traditional. You know, it should never be separate. You know, there's so much we can learn from thousands and thousands and thousands of years of traditional medicines. You know, and are we that arrogant to think, oh, we've just found out that this works like this, but yeah, it's been there for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So it's marrying it and giving homage and giving honor to where the roots where it came from, because we have to be healed in spirit as well. You know, not religion, but in spirit and body, soul.
And I think, you know, they've been studying the human body for thousands of years. They know stuff about the human body. We just assume they don't, I think. And the you know, as more and more Western, as more and more allopathic medicines make their way into the villages, in, like, you know, for prescription medications and that sort of thing, I think that's going to have to be like looked at, and we're going to have to you know, share that. Like, some of these medicines don't combine well. So
How do you see that in your practice? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's okay. What did you say?
How do you screen for that in your current work for, you know, these other medicines and stuff? What do you have to do?
Well, there are certain things people just can't be on when they come to Iboga or Iboga, right? There's just certain, there's quite a few contraindicated substances, not just medication, like a prescription medication, but also natural things, you know. Iboga.
Grapefruit?
Pardon?
Grapefruit? Is grapefruit one of them?
Yeah, grapefruit's one of them.
Bergamot? Yeah, it's bergamot. Yeah.
In the week or two leading up to it, yeah.
Yeah. So Earl Grey tea has bergamot in it, so it's something to be mindful of when people are in the medicine. Yeah, just anything that's going to affect a person's QT, so their heart, or serotonin. And we don't want to be stacking medications or herbal supplements that boost or increase serotonin, right? And then add Iboga to it, or add Ibogaine to it.
You know, yeah, and some of the substances we take, some of the foods we take that have, you know, serotonin bumping power, so to speak, you know, they're very minute, right? So they don't really make a big change. But, you know, when you come to the medicine, be it Ibogaine or the Iboga, it's going to give you such a big surge. Now, that's also going to be on your readiness to receive that big surge too, but it's going to be a big surge. And this is a medicine of knowing, and we want to know our clients are safe. Not like, well, yeah, I should be okay having that. There's no should be's in this, because this is really serious. It's when we start getting soft on what is needed is when we start seeing injuries. You know, the plant itself isn't dangerous. It is not. It's how we interact with it. It's how we pre-screen. It's how we show up to take it. We're the problem, right? And so, yeah, humanity is the problem with this reverent plant. So we handle things with care, right? And we handle our clients with care because they're trusting. So and everyone should be really looking and weighing it out so they come in a good place. It's not guessing. It's like, oh, you should be okay. No, we know you're okay. Then you don't have the problems. Yeah.
That's really the gift of the West, is all the diagnostic tools, basically what really, so bringing together that gift, you know, with the gift of the, I really think of this as the shamanic inner journey, and, you know, it's so powerful. It's so powerful, and you know, it's been powerful. It's powerful with ayahuasca. It's powerful with psilocybin when it's done in a container like that, a spiritual container. When it's held like that, when there is I think when the people are holding an innate understanding, of this path. But I just I observe in my journeys that it's a universal pathway inside us, that spiritual pathway, because like you said, all religions or all people will agree that it's the same thing, that we're all one, that we're all connected. And they've already, I don't know, I'm sure people know this, that genetically they've traced us back to Adam, the first man. So it's a fact on the ground. It's not a belief or anything. It's true. We all come from that one gene. So isn't that the point, to get out of the separation and go back to that oneness, that sense of oneness, and then we can individuate even within that sense of oneness.
And it starts within ourselves, right? And when we reach that within ourselves, where we connect with ourselves, we're able to connect fully with those around us. You know, remove some of the blocks to our own understanding, our own love, our own acceptance of ourselves, our own forgiveness of ourselves. Then we can actually move forward with everybody else. It's like grabbing the oxygen on the plane, put it on yourself before you put it on your baby. You know, we have to do that for ourselves to be efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just so much wisdom in the teaching, you know, that we get from Gabon, because they've been studying these questions, the same ones we're asking, for very intentionally for thousands of years. You know, what is life? You know, how do I connect with the plants to know how to heal? You know, how do I connect with my ancestors? How do I connect with my soul? How do I connect with all the, you know, spirits around me that are trying to help me? And how do I listen? And how do I live a good life? And how do I have more joy? And all these questions, you know, they've been asking. And Iboga, so much more, I find, clearly than any other plant, or ibogaine, you know, when it talks to us, it tends to be very clear. And it loves to give us very simple, direct answers, right? That we don't have to question. We don't have to build a story around, or we don't have to try to decipher, you know. It's just simple. Like, you know, for me, one of the most profound things the medicine ever told me was think it. You know, as a way to show me the stories I was creating in my mind. And so that's it. That's think it, you know. There's so many ways that the medicine will just give somebody a phrase or something really simple, like 3 or 4 words for them to take and to really, like, deepen their connection to that, to really understand who they are and in what ways they are holding themselves back.
Yeah. One of the things that just coming out of this retreat here, again, you know, we're in constant communication with our elders and our teachers back in Gabon. You know, they know exactly who's coming to our retreat. what they're coming for. They hold ceremony when Papa Sistan, he'll call me. I mean, it's a good thing I'm on Iboga because I'm better at French when I'm got Iboga going on. I remember some of my old French, and he's asking, how are they doing, and how is this person and that person we were dealing with, and helps me have a certain ceremony for someone else to help them through something. Really engaging, and then throughout the night, little texts. How is this person going on? What are they doing now? And it's like, at the bottom line is, we're doing this work. We are still very much students. We will never stop being students. They're students of the medicine still, So we're very blessed to have that interaction with all the guests and to help hold this container of this spiritual healing, which is so profound and so important on every level. Yeah, very, very, very lucky. And that's the reasons that the whole cultural and the tradition is important. Even if you're doing Ibogaine, to have that understanding, it comes from this, and we must recognize it. We can't just lose it to pharmaceuticals. It can't be about that. You can't commoditize this.
Yeah.
But we need to understand, and that's important.
Well, that's the knowledge we're here to. That's what I toil for, is to keep the plant medicine conversation, tradition, understanding, all that alive, so that we don't lose these traditions and it doesn't become just molecular. It just cannot be just molecular.
Now more than ever before, we need these conversations about this, as there's getting so much publicity out there. For years, no one talked about Iboga or Ibogaine. No one knew. When you have a whole bunch of a plant medicine conference, it's all these other plants are there, and there's nothing about Iboga, nothing about Africa, and it's like we forgot about them or something. Now that they're coming up in such a forefront, it's now, especially in time, an importance to talk about this, educate. Yeah.
Yeah, we can be a force for good. A force for good. The medicine itself is. I have so much reverence for it. And does anybody else have any questions? I have a urgent cat feeding appointment right now. So I'm just going to step away for a second. But if somebody else has a question, please unmute yourself and ask. No one?
You do provider training, or are you connected to do provider training?
We're
Hello.
actually gonna
Yeah. Hi, Dan.
we're actually gonna start that process. There's the thing about provider training that is difficult is really the only way.
I lost your sound, unfortunately.
What? Sorry.
Lost your sound.
Oh,
Could you
sorry.
repeat?
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just lost your sound, so I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Yeah, they're frozen, so their
Oh.
Wi-Fi must be. Oh, there you go. Back
Are we
again.
back?
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a committee, but we're gonna start that process. And one of the things I think that we're gonna start with is really understanding trauma and what it means to hold space for people in trauma. Because I think we need to start there, and then start weaving in the tradition and how the tradition works with trauma. And then keep moving into that space and see where it leads us. But yeah, I always think, like, what we do now is we have people who are coming to help us support, and they come and they can be in ceremony, and they can see how that works, and how we blend in the tradition, and and support with the medical side of things, and the preparation and the integration and all of that. So yeah.
So we're working on the context part of it, but it's definitely going to take the practical application alongside of it. But that's something we're getting ready to roll out. that answers your question.
And then, of course, I think if you want to serve this medicine, you should go to Gabon.
Yes.
I've been to Gabon once, but I wasn't there long enough to do the training. It's only there a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing is too, like, for them to learn to serve medicine takes, 10 plus more years, a lifetime, right? Like, this isn't something that you take a course on and then you're ready to serve medicine. So it's how do we honor that side of things, and as well, not make it impossible on this side for people to learn how to serve.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to drop my email in the chat in case you can contact me.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? So Caroline says, thoughts on sustainability. We're not going to talk about this in this panel. We will in another one, Caroline, because it's a long conversation. So if no one else has any questions, thank you so much, Patrick and Michelle. I really appreciated everything you shared and how you frame it and what you're doing and to help other people. It's exactly right, what you're creating. So wishing you the greatest success. And if you can just put your put it in your soulreflections.com, right?
.net.
.net.
.net. You can
That's
also
our website,
find them on awake.net in the directory. So that's a really easy way to remember how to. .net?
It's .net, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. There we go.
Perfect.
Hello. Was it Patrick and Stephanie? Is that right?
Michelle.
Patrick and
Michelle.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay, Michelle. Well, I just want to say thank you for holding this space today. And I've been really curious about this for quite some time, but it seems like it's hard to find information of. I've been involved in medicine communities, but they've primarily been in Spanish. So I'm just really excited to hear about. I don't speak Spanish, so I'm just really excited to just hear about this in a context I can really understand and really start to grasp and learn more of. And I look forward to keeping up with you. And I'd love to come out sometime and learn in any type of way. So if there's like any way I could follow you, I know I heard you have like soulreflections.com. Do you have like a newsletter list or something that I can join?
Yeah. You can just here. I can type in our email.
Our email is info@soulreflections.net. And who's am I talking to Iwan?
This is Ricky.
Ricky. Okay,
Ricky.
sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, can I ask you to take it offline because I want to bring in the next speaker?
Yeah. There you go.
There we go.
So
Great. Thank you, everyone.
And I want to, let's see, I got to remove the spotlight. I want to introduce Iwan Morgan.
Iwan, yeah. Iwan.
And Iwan. There you are.
Yeah.
Spotlight. So Iwan is really a wonderful human being, and I was very honored to meet you and spend some time with you. And he's got such an amazing story about his own liberation from addiction and how it brought him to the Bwiti. And so, Iwan, can you share a little bit about your story, how you found the medicine and your work with the Bwiti and what you now do? That's sort of the overall.
Sure. Yeah, so I was an intravenous heroin user for many years. I went through 2 methadone programs. After 6 years on my second methadone program, I remembered an article about Iboga and Iboga being used as treatment for opioid addiction over in the Netherlands. And I was actually on my way to see my doctor that day to pick up my methadone prescription. And it was just a light bulb moment, because I was kind of questioning how I was going to actually, tackle this huge task of becoming free of my methadone dependency. And so, yeah, that came in just magically, really, because it was an article that was read to me when I was 19 years old, which was probably the first occasion that I smoked heroin. So it was incredible synchronicity happening, so that, actually the first time I smoked heroin, this medicine was being shown to me. And I've got the kind of memory that something registers, it stays there, and then, magically it unlocks at the moment you need that information. And that's how it happened for me. The language of synchronicity is so sort of inextricably, intertwined with this work. And it just plugs you into that. And, it kind of showed me how that magic was weaving itself into my life at the beginning of my, my journey with opioids. So incredible, really. And then, yeah, I just made the decision to start reducing my methadone dose. Started, making inquiries into Iboga and Ibogaine providers. After a couple of calls, I managed to track down Paul Featherstone up in Yorkshire, and something just clicked, and he got me started on my journey. I mean, by the time I got in touch with Paul, I'd already spent the best part of 2 years making significant changes to my life. That meant, changing my daily routine. I'd lost my job after 9 years, so that was a blessing in disguise, really. And then just started this kind of daily regime, if you like. I started to look at my life in a different way. So rather than look at life from the perspective of, an addict who's hard done by, who's stuck in a rut, I started looking at my life as an opportunity to change and, make long-lasting change. And I just tackled it like, I suppose, like I would if I were, a soldier fighting for his life, and I implemented some serious regime into my daily routine, and started doing stuff like qigong every day. I found a good class, and I started doing qigong, tai chi, and kung fu with the same teacher, and I practiced every day. I mean, I didn't work for those 2 years. I wasn't working. I was on sickness benefit. I had every day to dedicate to a self rehabilitation kind of program, completely DIY. I didn't have money to be spending on counseling. I had a little bit of free counseling in the needle exchange place, some free acupuncture, that kind of thing. But it was basically down to me to actually, dig deep and find the inner resources and implement that discipline to make these changes. Because as far as I was concerned, all that mattered was that I was going to be free of opioids, free of methadone. And, I was just looking forward to living my life fully. And I was determined, and I had the odds stacked against me because I didn't have the support of people in authority like doctors. I mean, that's kind of the way it is anyway. But at the time, there was something inside of me that expected better from them, who was supposed to be caring for people like myself. So anyway, I went for it. And yeah, 2011, went up to Yorkshire, detoxed with Paul. I remember the chat we had on the way to his, and he just said, I can just tell you're ready. He says, some people, they're just not ready, but I can just tell you're ready for this. And I was, I was. I mean, I had a serious check-in with myself about the whole thing because, it was kind of like my life on the line for maybe the average person who would be reading about this stuff, they would probably think, oh, there's a high risk of death there. But I didn't think of things like that because I felt like, I prepared myself well. I was in good hands. I was with someone who knew what they were doing. But I was kind of in that process of acknowledging that it could go either way. And over those 2 years, one of the things I did was actually spend every day in the cemetery. Doing one of the things in the Toltec tradition known as just meditating on your death, taking death as your advisor and, coming to that realization that actually, I've got one crack at this. I'm here in this life now and I've got absolutely nothing to lose. That was what it came down to, was I had nothing to lose, everything to gain. So yeah, I went through that detox with Paul. It gave me more than I bargained for because I had, the kind of journey that I would have expected, or I did expect to have later, which I did have during my initiation. But for me, it was like, because it was my first contact and it was a big dose that he gave me. He gave me a mix of the ibogaine hydrochloride. It was measured, for my body weight, and then root bark and total alkaloid, so the combination of all three. And I was taken on this journey, and I actually met the Bwiti, as you do, during your initiation, Bwiti initiation. I met the Bwiti that first visit, and actually I was shown a lot of things that I was shown repeatedly, which all made sense during my initiation, like the vision of the lion. That's my combo, Bovenga, the lion. And I was shown that on my first contact with it. So the Bwiti was reeling me in from the very beginning. And it was basically just showing me, well, this is who you are. But first you need to go on this journey. And so what was shown to me was this kind of epic, it was just an epic voyage, really, showing me who I am, what my spirit's about, the warrior spirit, but also this kind of ancient, wizard or witch doctor, but the several different incarnations and all that kind of stuff across, so many different lifetimes. And it was a lot to take in for me, but it was just it was what it was, and it was like, well, you're gonna have to go on this journey. And that's exactly what happened. After my treatment, I went home. I already had a sort of a routine or a strategy in place that ensured a good integration process. I had my partner at the time supporting me, my family, especially my mother. I had been making new friends as well. And yeah, just a lot of synchronized meetings, lots of doors opening, doors opening into a medicine community and different medicine communities in the UK, which, in turn gave me access to different kinds of ceremonies, and also opened the door for me to go to Peru and study plant dietas and work with ayahuasca. And, running through this work was the Toltec, the art of the Nawal. So, the different steps or stages a warrior goes through before he returns to his true essence, and that's the journey with the wood. So the two went together extremely well. So, at the time, other than Paul, I didn't have any elders per se, that I could relate to, in regards to the work. It was before my time starting my Bwiti apprenticeship. That wasn't until early 2014. But yeah, this kind of yeah, this framework, if you like, provided me with a map and a way of really integrating everything from my work with Iboga and the other plant medicines as well. Yeah, it was incredible, really, you know, and also this acknowledgement that, you know, I had to somehow, you know, from the word go, really, the only way that I was able to do this was to like really drop my self-importance, to eradicate self-importance. You know, I had to move through a lot of resistance, but you know, there was this momentum, this amazing momentum that just carried me through. And yeah, you know, it wasn't easy. I came back from Peru. I had a relapse which didn't last that long, but it was enough for me to really, you know, realize that, you know, it's hard to describe, but you know, because I'd freed myself from opioid dependency and had gone on this journey, coming back here to the UK after being in the jungle for 4 or 5 months was really hard for me. I tried to fit in back into a life that I'd left behind as a, you know, as an artist. Not that I'd left behind being an artist, but the community around. And you know, there was a lot of alcohol and drug use there, recreational use, but it was there. And I just felt, you know, really sort of out of sorts, really. And yeah, that's where the relapse came in. But I managed to actually address it pretty quickly. And then lo and behold, I received an invitation from a friend of mine in London. Her flatmate had some really good quality Iboga, and I was invited to go up there. I mean, I had participated in an ayahuasca ceremony about a month to 6 weeks before that, but it didn't really, you know, it got something out of my system, but I continued using a little bit after that, and then I went through this incredible, well, it was horrendous actually, detox, and that was a rite of passage in itself because yeah, what I didn't actually take into consideration, and I should have taken into consideration, was the fact that a few days before going up there and doing this, I'd injected crack cocaine and heroin together, which used to be my poison of choice. And yeah, that had an adverse reaction. I mean, the wood worked in my system in such a way that was flushing me, completely flushing me from the inside out. But I think it was on the third day I woke up. You know, I was a mess, and the person looking after me had fallen asleep, and I had to go to the toilet, to the bathroom to clean myself. And I sat on the toilet, and something happened where, yeah, there was something going on with my perception, and that was happening at the same time as me having this kind of, my jaw was locking, and I bit my tongue, and I had a seizure. You know, I mean, I was conscious, so I didn't go unconscious, but I had this kind of, I was like biting down on my tongue, and I couldn't open my jaws. I managed to actually get through that somehow. I don't know what happened, but I was able to snap out of that somehow. Washed my mouth out, had this swollen tongue, and that was the wood taking me through this really painful rite of passage to show me what can actually, it wanted me to go through this. That's why I feel I needed to go through this, to actually be shown how perilous it can be if you don't disclose certain information to people. Bear in mind, I'm doing this with people who aren't Iboga practitioners. It's a very DIY operation, very different to my detox with Ibogaine. And I also understood why it's kind of safer and easier, I would say, generally, and possibly more sensible, you know, probably more sensible to detox addict with ibogaine hydrochloride primarily first, yes, with a bit of root bark, but it was kind of showing me that, and I needed to go through that because, it's a lesson I'll never forget, and I can apply that, I can actually speak from experience to people who are coming in to see me. I mean, I generally don't treat addicts off the bat. I usually take them through months of detoxification and then bring them in for a Bwiti ceremony rather than bring them in and treat them with a wood immediately. It's more about them detoxing and making the changes beforehand. I don't detox people in the way that an ibogaine provider will detox someone. My ceremonies are about connection to the Bwiti, bringing us home to ourselves. And that, that's been my journey really, is the bringing home to who I actually am, which is just beautifully synchronized with the journey of a spiritual warrior within the Toltec tradition, returning to one's true essence, returning to the Nawal, who I really am, underneath the personality, the part of me that kind of lives on forever, But yeah, incredible journey. It took me 12 years of working with the sacrament before I went to Gabon. My Bwiti father, Tateo, couldn't believe it when I met him at the airport. He said, I can't believe it's taken you 12 years to get here. Like, finally, you've made it, and we were laughing about it. Because, in Bwiti and in life, and actually in Bwiti, our journey actually starts to show us that it couldn't be any other way. It couldn't be any other way. So there's no point saying, oh, if I'd done this or if I'd done that. Like, my whole way of looking, my outlook on life and reality is completely transformed since my journey began. I mean, before I met the wood as well, I went through a huge initiation during those 2 years, and another huge initiation before that as an intravenous heroin user. Life hasn't been easy, but this has been amazing preparation ground for me. So to lay really strong foundations, because it's made me extremely resilient. And I started sun dancing as well the year after I went over for my initiation. So it's only 3 years since I initiated with Tateo. It was perfect timing because I'd worked with all these other gangers and I'd worked with the wood on, I don't know, was it 4 continents or something over that time period. And it prepared me so well, because what I realized was, while some of the other guys there were getting distracted and getting caught up in, political debates and all that kind of stuff, I was super focused, and I just quietly excused myself from the dinner table, and and Tateo could see, I'm just focused on my initiation. That's what I'm there to do, and I did it. And I can't tell you how perfect it was, and also the realization that came to me when I was there going through the process of why it needed to be 12 years, why my journey had taken so long, why I had to go through all those experiences, hardships, working on building sites in London, sleeping on site, for 4 or 5 months, to save money to go to Gabon. This is what I was doing. I was doing that 5 days a week. I was traveling back to Wales to hold Cambo ceremonies on the weekends. What a journey, and then started sun dancing the following year. And then 2 weeks after the Sundance, I was flying back to Gabon to go through another rite of passage with the Bwiti. So it's kind of like, this is my life now. This has been my life for quite some time, and it's just, it's definitely taking on a different flavor. And 1 year ago, actually, it was at Solstice, I met my partner Nancy, and she's come in and she's got 26 years of experience working with Amazonian plant medicines, and she's just been incredible, incredible support. And it was a bit of a fast track operation really when she came in, because I met her on the Solstice I had a ceremony in August for the end of August planned in Wales, and I had people coming in for that. And then, yeah, I had to prepare her then because she hadn't worked with the wood before. She'd had the call in, just 26 years of ceremonial experience, you know. And then she just didn't hesitate. She just said, this is the right moment, you know. I mean, she'd received a lot of prophetic messages and stuff beforehand as well, which made it sort of, you know, feel right for her. But yeah, you know, it's been incredible. She's taken to it like a duck to water, and we work extremely well together. So that's the way it's been. And I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after she met the word. That's how soon it was she was assisting me in ceremony. And it's amazing as well. You know, I phone my elders, or I message them usually. I just let them know this is when I'm going into ceremony. This is where we are. This is when we're coming out of ceremony. I'll message you to let you know when we're out the other side. And then my phone goes off. Then my phone goes off. It goes on airplane mode. And then when I'm in the ceremony, I've got telepathic communication with one of my elders and the Bwiti. So the elder that I have, who's like my godfather or uncle within the Bwiti, Pemba, he's the one who's he's gifted me the Masoko songs and the other little things that I need to kind of make this work. And then yeah, we've got this telepathy going on. And then after that work in Wales, I put my phone on once we finished, and I just messaged him to say we're all done. I received a really nice vision of you, very good, clear communication during the ceremony, and he said yes. He said the Bwiti has shown me you're doing very good work with the wood, with the sacred wood, and for me, for that message to land with me at that time, I couldn't tell you how much it meant to me, because that was the first ceremony I'd conducted since 2021 with the wood. I had a few years break, and it was to do with my splitting away from my old teacher over in South Africa. So I had a pause, and during that pause between 2021 and 2023 was when I did all the things that I needed to do to get to Gabon and all the steps that I needed to take. So, you know, it was, I don't know, like I said, you know, there's no other way it could have been. There's no what ifs. There's no I could have done it this way, because the way it happens, that's the way it's going to be, and that's the way it's got to be. And that's it, you know. We learn as we go along, and it's that simple.
For sure. I think we have a few more minutes, and I can open it up to questions if anybody has questions. I just want to point out for people who are going into medicine work for addiction or psychospiritual healing or anything, that some of the things Ewan was talking about, these passages, coming back home and having a sort of emptiness or a void, going back into a void, these are very classic passages that people will go through, you know, and you can kind of prepare for it, or, you know, have a plan of action or whatever, but still you have to go through some of that because you've unearthed things that you've been suppressing for a long time, most of the time. So it's whether you do it with the wood or whether you do it with ibogaine, you're going to experience some things. And this is why we say that preparation and integration is very, very important. Like to have to have resources and to understand what kinds of things can happen. So thank you, Ewan, for that.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Does anybody have any questions?
Hello, Ivan. This is Ricky. Thank
Hello,
you.
Ricky.
Yeah, thank you. Hello. thank you for coming into this space as well, brother. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
And I was just wondering, like, just for future's sake, if I was ever interested in maybe consulting with you more as I were to get into this work some more, if I could contact you sometime, or maybe
Yeah.
even come out to the UK if you're open to that, if
Yes,
that's possible.
Yes, yes. I mean, we're working. I mean, at the moment, what I'm looking at doing, it looks like, there's there is a big network opening up for us. I've got my old network, but there's a new network now, and we've got some new hosts over in Spain. I'm going over to Portugal in May to have a look at a place over there. We're also doing some stuff in the UK as well. We've just got two UK dates this year at the moment, one on the weekend of the summer solstice and one the weekend before the autumn equinox. So yes, we could add you to the mailing list if you like, and then we can have a chat. I like to open up opportunities for people if they've been working with the wood for a bit of time, or they've got a bit of experience, or if they're initiated and they want to come and work with me and Nancy and see the way we do things, then yeah, sure, the door's open. I do the same kind of thing with people who want to come and assist. I do a kind of a screening process and consultation, that kind of thing as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just feel tremendous gratitude in my heart for that. Like, thank you. And would it be okay if I left my email in the chat for that then?
Yes, please do. And I'll get that newsletter out to you, the latest newsletter out to you as soon as possible. And then we're putting together another newsletter for all our works until the end of the year, I believe. So summer and autumn newsletter. I think that's what we're working on this weekend. So yeah.
Sounds great, brother. Thank you. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you.
Well, do you have anything else to add, Iwan, before we close?
I mean, I'm just really grateful, really, for the opportunities that are coming up, Lakshmi. Thank you for your support and your patience with me, in general, with my IT, with my Stone Age IT abilities. No, just huge amount of gratitude for this community. Huge amount of gratitude to Paul Featherstone, who continues to mentor me in many ways. And then, to my Boiti family over in Gabon, Tateo, I don't know if you made it this evening. I did email them the link, but sometimes they have a power cut, which means no Wi-Fi over there, which happens actually on a daily. Yeah, huge amount of gratitude to everyone.
Probably a good thing. We should have more power cuts.
Yeah, let's throw our computers away.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to call up TRACY GANSKE, who is our third.
Hello.
Hi, TRACY.
Hey there. How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. My bandwidth here in the jungle is sometimes also a little sketchy. So if I go off camera, that's probably why.
Okay. So you're in Costa Rica right now?
I am in the mountains of Costa Rica, actually. Yes.
So I met TRACY in San Miguel, yeah, I think that's where we met in Mexico, and she has a really interesting background because she's a medical researcher and nurse who has traveled to the Congo many times to work with the pygmies with their Iboga tradition in Cameroon and the Congo, right? I don't know if I'm getting that right where you went, but TRACY, I'd love to really, if you can share how the medicine came to you and how you connected with the indigenous tradition and what you're doing now. That would be really awesome.
Sure, happy to. I really came like Patrick and Michelle. I was a nurse. I'm actually a nurse anesthetist, and then went back to get a PhD and worked really in Western medicine doing clinical trial research for oncology cancer companies, biotech companies. And then I got very ill with something called Lyme disease, which is pretty endemic from the area that I'm from in upstate New York. And I was sick for a number of years, actually. And so in that sort of period of illness, I spun up functional medicine clinics and really was disappointed, like so many of us are with Western medicine and allopathic medicine, and felt like it was missing the boat. It was just treating symptoms. And so I was attracted to that functional medicine model where really, symptoms are not treated. It's like we get to the root cause, no pun intended, because now I work with Iboga. So it's really, root cause medicine. And so I had clinics all through Texas and different cities in Texas, and they became pretty successful. But, physically, I was healing my body through an advent of different things that I was doing, again, with like root cause medicine. But I knew that there was still a portion or part of my body that was not healing. I happened to meet a woman on a plane, and she was going to an ayahuasca ceremony actually out in Mount Shasta, and I knew nothing about it. I said, gosh, I need to research this. I don't know what it is. And I was very resistant. She and I kept in touch, and she said, you should come with me. I have this shaman in South Florida, and you should come and sit in a ceremony. And it was very data driven. And I thought, there's no way. I'm so clinically evidence-based. Like, there's absolutely no way that I want to do this. It took me about 18 months. She was very persistent. And so I went and sat with her, and it was really life-changing. It was like, wow, not only was I able to see all the things that was still happening within my body, I saw my mind. I saw a lot of my sort of subconscious belief systems and where I was housing trauma that I never knew I had. And so it was almost like the body keeps score in a way. You have these things that you trap in your subconscious mind that often manifest as chronic or clinical, of illness. And so after about I think, fourth or fifth time of sitting with her in ayahuasca ceremonies, I got the very clear message from Aya that I was to go to Africa and work with the master of all plants, Iboga. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about that. So this was many, many years ago. I mean, this is now going on 12 years ago. And, I did a cursory amount of research on it and found out, I'm going to go to Gabon because that seems to be like where the heart of this medicine is from. So off I went to initiate with someone there in Gabon, and I had a bit of a tumultuous experience with this person. And I quickly changed courses. And while I was there, I sat with a woman. I went and became initiated into the Dasumba tradition. And then the sub sort of lineage, as Patrick sort of indicated, there's many, many different lines and lineages off of one. And so Dasumba is like the actual original lineage of Iboga, and a Lambo tradition is that of which a healing tradition. So it's more medically based. It's more like seers and true healers and people that do treat diseases, actually. So I was initiated by a female. All of my initiations, ironically, in Africa have been with females, high-level Nimas. And then from there, kind of a crazy story. I mean, most of you will understand when you're in medicine, we do get these messages. And it was very clear. This woman, this small pygmy woman who appeared to be not from Gabon, contacted me in Journey. And then she continued to come to me in awake dreams. And she said, I have something very important to share with you. I need you to find me. I'm in the Congo. And I thought, this is insane. How am I ever going to find this pygmy woman in the Congo? And as the story sort of unfolded over the course of a little over a year, I had actual coordinates of where she was located, and I would get all these details, and I mapped it out. I found a fixer on the ground in Cameroon, and it told me specifically where to fly into and how to travel over to the border of the Congo where this woman was. And long story short, I found her. It wasn't easy, but I found her. And it was a very arduous journey. I mean, it took us 18 hours to get over there. You can't fly into this place. You have to take a car, and the car broke 4 different times. I think I could literally write a book just based on that experience alone. It was pretty interesting. And we hiked in. The villagers actually knew her. They said she's an extremely high priestess. And yeah, it was fascinating, you know, hiked in like 7
Name in your
hours.
dream? Did you get the
From my
name?
dream, yeah, from these awake dreams that I had. And she would almost like speak to me. I know it sounds wacky, but like telepathically. And I confirmed all the information. And yeah, I asked, you know, other locals and another, actually a male, his name is Papa George, pygmy, Baka pygmy in Cameroon. And he said, I know exactly who this woman is. He's like, she's very deep in the forest. And if she's calling you, you must go. It's got to be very important. He said she's an incredible high priestess healer, and you definitely have to make the trip. So I couldn't turn back at that point. I found this woman sitting in the middle of a, you know, cacao forest. We walked for 7 hours in one way. And, you know, they have no concept of time. It's like they don't have phones, they have nothing. And so it was like, how much further? I felt like the little Smurfs, you know, Papa Smurf, how much further? And they just kept saying like a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And so, yeah, I was like 7 hours in. And interestingly enough, I had seen in that vision that I would be crossing this river. And we did. We had to swim across this river to get to her. And when I got to her, she was sitting in the middle of this beautiful cacao forest. It was huge. And it was her and her husband and her elderly mother and a child. And she just looked up at me and nodded. It was like had recognized me. And in her local language in Baka, she said, the ancestors told me you'd be coming. And I was like, wow. It was pretty incredible. So I did an initiation with her. And, you know, they believe in something quite different. It really, when I researched it, it was almost like I know it might upset a lot of people, but they tend to be the OGs of Iboga. They were the hunters and gatherers that the Bantu people in Gabon encountered. And the Bantu people are agriculturists. You know, they're not hunters and gatherers in the forest. And so they have the most familiarity. It's been written, and many that are famous ethnographers and you know, ethnobotanists have recorded this, one being Giorgio Sammarini. And so he really believed that the Baka Pygmy were the first, you know, the first to really discover Iboga. So yeah, it was really it's been an interesting ride. She's a lovely woman, and she had gifted me this power called the Malumbi power. And she said she was told to do this by her ancestors. And she said it has never been given to anybody outside their tradition. So I felt pretty blessed. Yeah, and then from there, you know, I just recently came back from Cameroon. I've also spent a lot of time in Cameroon, and I was recently initiated into the Fang tradition, which is also, Patrick sort of mentioned, it's got a lot of elements of Christianity. And they did learn from the Masoko, which is, you know, also like a very important lineage there in Gabon, but also a really just interesting experience, also by a female. Her name is Mama Majeste. So very, very powerful woman. Probably the hardest journey of initiation I've ever done. It was intense. So
How is it different? Can you talk a little bit about how is it different from Bwiti, and how is it the same?
which one? The Baka,
Yes.
the pygmy?
Oh, well, the initiations that you've done, in anyone, if they're very different, then both, I guess. Just trying to understand what is different about it from the Bwiti tradition, and just trying to understand more. Really, what did you go through, and what insights?
Yeah, no, they're good questions. They are all very different. So the Dasumba, the Dasumba tradition or the lineage of Dasumba is really thought to be the first that was passed on by the Babunga, which are the pygmies. And so that I had been initiated into something called the Alumbo. It's like, you know, a tree branches that come off of these big sort of, you know, tenets, these big like traditions themselves, the lineage themselves. And so the way I was initiated in Alumbo was quite interesting because my Nima, she was a female, she said to me, like very early on, she said, "You're a seer." She said, "You can see what's wrong with people. You know, it's almost like holographic." She goes, "You can look at somebody and almost do a diagnostic on what's wrong with them," which is really the tradition. That's what they teach. But she said, "You have that talent, you have the gift." And it was very strange because after my ceremony, it was like all of these villagers, they come and they support, as Patrick and Michelle described so eloquently. But at the foot of my mat in the morning, she had lined up like all of the villagers. There were like 7 or 8 of them there. And she had asked me, she said, I want you to tell me what's wrong with each of these people. I want to know, and I want you to tell me like what is the traditional remedy from the forest. And, still so deep in the wood. I mean, they flood for, 2 days before. And so you're still so in it. And I don't know how I knew, but I knew, I would have the first woman came. I still specifically remember her. And I said, she has fibroids in her uterus. She's unable to get pregnant. She needs a certain plant from the jungle here. It's a pea pod. You take the little seeds out and you boil the silk that's in there and you make a tea and you drink it twice a day. And she said, yes, next. And I just kind of went down the line. It was pretty interesting. I don't know how she knew that about me, but she knew I could. And I think today, as it relates to some of the work that I do, I work mostly private with people because it's hard for me with what I do. I think to work in groups, it gets very convoluted in my mind. So I work mostly semi-private, 2 at a time is kind of my max, but I am able to see even before they arrive. I often can kind of feel what's going on in my body, which isn't always great. My staff and people that work with me are kind of like, oh gosh, here she goes again. I just had kidney stones. I'd never had kidney stones before. And a woman showed up and I said, do you have problems with your kidneys? She goes, oh, I have terrible kidney stones. I was like, oh my gosh, I just had experienced kidney stones. And so then the Baka, kind of to answer your question, how they're different, they really don't use Iboga anymore, interestingly enough. They have such deep knowledge. What they told me is that they have used it for so long, like 60,000 years. They now have a direct conduit to the ancestors, so they oftentimes don't use it. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. I was initiated deep in the Congo with that woman, and it involves spirits of the forest. I mean, they're true like stewards and community protectors. They call them Genji. And it's really interesting. They have such a beautiful reverence for nature. So I learned so much from them, not just obviously traditions around what they do, but all the other plants. They're like extreme ethnobotanists, and they have such deep forest knowledge of every single plant in the forest. It's really fascinating for almost any condition. And then the Fang, as I think Patrick alluded to, they have more from the missionaries that came in, more in like the northern Gabon area into Cameroon. They have more elements of Christianity. And so you'll see a lot of the, Jesus statues and all of the things that have reverence mostly to the church and to God and all of that kind of stuff. So they include a lot of those into their ceremonies, and the way in which they use them often is through these narrative stories. It's pretty interesting. So it's kind of like they're acting them out, and it is, just really fascinating. Each one has its own elements of distinctness. So really cool.
Is there a language barrier when you go there? How do you communicate?
Yes. I don't know French. A lot of times they speak French and it's kind of like pygmy, it's Guinea. It's like, it's not so proper. Even if I were to speak French, I think some things don't always translate. I always have a translator with me because it's hard. It's hard to learn. It's hard to like get knowledge from them unless you're really fluent in French. And mostly they were French colonies, right? So yeah, most of the places I've ever been have been French-speaking provinces, and so I always tend to travel with somebody who's fluent. The Baka is more challenging because they speak their own dialect, they speak Baka. And so you kind of need 2 translators, you need someone that understands like French to Baka and then back to English. And so I have traveled with like 2 people before. So
you had to be really intrepid to make this all happen.
I'm crazy. I mean, I think people that know me say like, oh my gosh, here she goes again.
What's the gift now? How does that come together with what you're now doing? And how does all this background with the pygmies, and how does it come together for you in what you offer?
I think I'm able to offer, a holistic experience. I think with my medical background, like Patrick and Michelle, I have a PhD in gut biome and, how the gut and the brain axis relate together, especially for addiction work. I feel like really I am the blend of like where science meets spirit in a way, because I understand it from a medical Western mind and that we have to be cognizant of that. We're not in Gabon, we do have to do EKGs. We do have to do the things that medically keep people safe. But then on the spirit side, blending a lot of these different lineages I take from each of them, I'm not necessarily dogmatic in one. The lessons and the things that I've learned in each of them, I tend to blend that a little bit, and maybe that's not the right way to do it, but it's just my way. And I think clients appreciate understanding a little bit from each and why it's important. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you said you work with people one-on-one. What kind of people do you work with? What kind of conditions, or like who's a good candidate for the work you do?
Well, like some of the others, I have recognized, I know Patrick and Michelle quite well, and I don't necessarily take people in deep addiction. I do work with a place here in Costa Rica. They're actually 8 minutes away. And so it's a beautiful sort of symbiotic relationship where if somebody really does need like a detox, they'll go and get the traditional detox. They don't do Ibogaine, but then it's beautiful because then I'm able to, once they're clean and they're free of substances, I'm able to do the psychospiritual experience for them, the root experience, and they really appreciate that. I work with people a lot that have deep trauma, probably similar to the others that have been on the call. And I work with people that have what I call kind of light addiction. Now we see so much of the people coming in with like ketamine addictions, things that are supposed to be something that were for people to break free of depression and anxiety and all these things. We're starting to see that being overused. And so I do get a lot of ketamine addictions, kratom, I've gotten that, alcohol, of course, cigarettes, cannabis is a big one. But if somebody's coming off the streets like hot off of fentanyl or on fentanyl, that's something that I'm not set up for that. So that's where I do refer them to the addiction center. Yeah.
So, can I just emphasize what you're saying? It sounds like a really good pathway. Couldn't somebody go to a traditional detox in the US that insurance pays for and come to see you or Patrick or somebody do a Bwiti type an Iboga ceremony? Could they not do that?
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. And that's really what I'm starting to work on now is like affiliating with a US based facility, obviously not approved yet for Ibogaine, but they're treated traditionally using insurance and then sending them to me for the psychospiritual piece and for the integration. I think Katie mentioned it, it's so important. We miss that piece a lot is what happens after. The journey is a third of it, it's like, oh my goodness, we need to really help people integrate. And that to me is the quintessential piece that I hate to say, but some of the other centers, maybe Ibogaine, I'm not sure, but I do get a lot, I do get a considerable amount of those people that come from those other centers and they say my experience felt very fragmented. And so just saying that, I think, again, there's a place for it. There's definitely a place for Ibogaine, no doubt. But I think what becomes more robust and more powerful to optimize people is detox, whether you do it traditionally or through Ibogaine, then following it up with Iboga.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful plan because that's the hardest piece for many people is the detoxing and preparation.
Yes.
A lot of people fall off the bandwagon right there.
Yes.
So, so does anybody have any questions? Oh yeah, Rachel, you have your hand up. Unmute.
Okay, that's so wonderful to hear your presentation. Thank you for doing the work and sharing your views. This is sort of can you hear me?
A little fuzzy, but try again.
I think if I disconnect, this whole thing will go off. My headphones aren't really set up. Can you hear me okay?
Let me just spotlight for a second. Okay. I don't know what happened. I think she went offline. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about what happens, like what happened, what is the inner journey with Iboga like, either from your experience or somebody you worked with? Can you give some accounts of it or an account?
Yeah, so it's so interesting, right? I mean, I'll give you a great example. I have a client here now. He's been to me before. He's very analytical, he has this military background and, ex-CIA contractor and all this. So that's how they're trained, right? And he was so insistent the last time that he had seen he has a child. And he said, I have a child, I've seen it, Iboga's shown this to me, and I'm getting confirmation that he's somewhere when I went on a trip to Greece. I mean, he had all these details. And I thought, okay, this is really interesting. And so he has spent so much time researching all of this. He's hired an investigator and all this kind of stuff. And this time I really was trying to help him set an intention. It's like, well, maybe you could ask Iboga to open your mind a little bit more as to like, what really is happening with this situation? Is it true? Is it factual? Sometimes I think people take that information that they often receive. I mean, this is most psychedelics in general, but a lot of times with Iboga, even though it's direct, it's very black and white. Is it literal? Sometimes it's teaching us to have discernment about our thought patterns, about the way in which we think. And so, I got something very different than he got. He got that he has a child somewhere. And the information that maybe I got was he is the lost child, trying to find his own childhood because he grew up as a Mennonite and they didn't have a childhood. He was placed in the fields at a very young age and taught to work. And so to me, I think, okay, this is really Iboga. This is what Iboga does teach us, is our own discernment. And sometimes we do take things so literal that we can convince ourselves of something that maybe is not factual. So I asked him to maybe try to reframe it in this journey to see if he thinks about it differently. It is so hard to quantify what Iboga does for each person because it's so different. I think that it is such an introspective experience, unlike some of the others that sort of sometimes take you outside of yourself. Like we can talk about ayahuasca and that it's a vine and it's up in the air and it goes up here, where Iboga is rooted. It's rooted in the ground. And so it tends to give people that very introspective experience, which is what we describe as a life review. It's about the person. And I believe in the healing benefits, and it's such an amazing teacher because again, it's not always literal, people have to sit with it. It's subtle. And people don't always like that. They don't like subtleties. They want the answer when they want it, and they want to walk away with some amazing insights. Well, Iboga doesn't always do that to people. It just takes time. And I always equate it to kind of the half-life. It's the one that has the longest half-life. It might take you the longest time to be able to realize what those insights mean and how they really are relating to your life. It teaches people patience. It teaches people to have grace and to surrender. So I love it. I'm a scientist. I'm a PhD. I look at things clinically, of course, but I work with it because it's the most efficacious. I don't care. It could be up against anything else, Bufo and, Aya and psilocybin. And I just feel like it's the greatest teacher. It's the Mount Everest of all plants. So I have great reverence for it. I really do. It's changed my life completely. And I only work with that. So
I have to concur. I've done over 300 psychedelic journeys, big ones, but Ibogaine was the capstone for me of all that journeying, 2 decades, and the capstone because it brought everything in a certain way, rooted it, like you said, in my being, in my day-to-day life, and that is just such a gift.
Absolutely. It's a gift. It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but it's a gift, you know? People don't always like the journey. It's not always as much fun as some of the others, but I tell you, on the other side of it, I always say to people, just wait, you know, just wait for the insights to come in. It's hard. It's hard giving birth to yourself. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing. It's a death and rebirth. I mean, that's what Woody is about. And people don't always realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, death and rebirth is what it is. Yeah, I think understanding that death, that, people think of it, I think that people maybe sometimes think that an ego death is going to hurt. But I think when the ego dies, it doesn't hurt. You just kind of pop out of it. If you have enough medicine in your body, you pop out of it into another place. And we have a little bit more time, so I'd love to talk a little bit more about these dimensions of um, telepathy and intuition, because that's really what you're talking about there with being able to diagnose people and telepathy. And ayahuasca also is called telepathin, so a lot of these medicines seem to open up. Do you have some thoughts on that?
I think it's a remembrance, honestly. I think we've all been things in past lives, and most of us that are drawn to this work, we've been healers in past lives, right? And I do see it as that. I see it as like the awakening of our essence, of our who we truly are meant to be in this lifetime. It's almost like an awakening of our DNA, which is oftentimes why people say like, oh, in Iboga, as Patrick said, I can understand French. It's like, yeah, we've been there before. We're familiar. And it's always sort of like amazing to me when I'm under the influence of really any psychedelic, but mostly Iboga. It's like this remembrance comes through of lifetimes in the past, and so it's very familiar. And I think that's what these plants do, is they help us remember. And right now, especially in this world, that it's almost like a great awakening, right? We have to awaken to these things. We have to. It's about survival, and it's about survival in a different way. And I really believe how profound it can be with, what gifts that we have to offer to people who are going to need the healing, who do need the healing.
Right. I think that's the work. That's really what this whole amazing, now that Ibogaine is on everybody's lips, everybody knows internationally. It's appropriate, I think, that such a powerful master plant sacrament is the one that was able to push through all the resistance,
Yes.
And so now people are going to have the mechanisms available, the knowledge to know that there is a pathway like this. And it's going to take every one of us. I think there's not very many people doing this. It's a handful of people if you compare it to there's Rachel back. It's a handful of people if you compare it to the number of people who need healing.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I just hope we give that reverence and this reciprocity back to Gabon and Cameroon and the tribes, right? Like, it's very important that that's recognized. And the only thing I get concerned about in this new landscape. So.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of why we're having these conversations, to have transparency, to bring awareness, and to do it right, because it's not just, that's all what healing is about. It's about a business culture that is rapacious. And you have this rapacious business culture coming into this sacramental zone. Yeah. and we have to be very mindful about what we create or get behind in that landscape.
For sure.
And the medicines will help you, right? If you're not sure, do more.
Yes. They'll move you into alignment quite quickly.
Yeah, Rachel, you're back. So let me just spotlight you also.
I am. Hi, sorry about that. Sis, what's your Tracy? Is that your name?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rachel. Okay, so this is really interesting. Two things. One, while I was trying to talk, my multiplex of religious stuff, which includes a gold chain from my first husband, who introduced me to Ibogaine. I got all tangled up with all my stuff. And so my question is going to be about my curiosity rather than the other people I was going to ask on behalf of. So I am Catholic, and super Catholic, and I had a vision when Jeff was treated in 2004. I've talked to other people about it. I didn't take the route. It was at the Blessed Mother, and then a slit, and then a red and yellow serpent came out, and uh, and I've been listening to a lot of Bach music for the last year or so since I got in touch with someone from Cameroon. So I was super interested to hear that part. When since the people that the woman that you were initiated with and her people have been working with this for 60,000 years, I wondered if you could speak at all to the sort of resistance in some Christian theologies that would reject the fruit of the tree as opposed to the root, that we're all talking about in terms of Iboga. I recently read out loud to Dana Beal the article in the Rolling Stone, and it quoted Governor Perry, something from Revelations on the leaves, which is all cool, right, in general for plant teachers. But Dana had all these religious ideas about it. And I was at I think my first iBegan conference was that he did stuff with Carl Ruck and all these theories about like that iBegan was in the wine or Syrian rue, or Jesus didn't really die in the tomb. He was on a psychedelic journey, stuff like that. And so that's like shaping, the snake vision, and Dana's stuff for 22 years has been shaping some of my questions about it. But I was really your medicine and that vision and the dream and having that Baca experience. Wonder if you have anything to say about potential pushback from fundamentalists or Catholic theologians or Christianity in general about the tree, the garden, and the knowledge of good and evil. Thanks.
Oh, such an interesting question that you posed. Last year around this time, I went on a podcast. You may have heard of it, The Health Ranger. It was Mike Adams. And so his demographic are mostly fundamentalists, interestingly enough, who want to be sovereign. They have this whole group of like sovereignty, and they're very interested in alternative medicine, rejecting government, all of these types of things, but very, very Christian. And they came to me in droves. It was pretty interesting. I mean, they showed up here. I think that on a lot of the screening calls, they were very curious and they were very interested. And I'm not a biblical theologian. I'm not, an expert at all of that. But look, the way I phrase it is like, gosh, the mystics, Jesus was a mystic. If you really want to go back, Jesus was a mystic.
I'm not asking you in terms of theology that's written or religious. I'm asking in terms of your experience in the jungle with that healer and the holographic, the idea that when you look at different plants or people and you can see and what the medicine is needed, what's going on with the medicine. That's I'm asking about your.
I see. I think it's just very different. I mean, specifically with that woman, I feel like they, again, have such reverence for nature itself. And so they do believe that God is source. I think all of them do, honestly, and God is source. And it's just the way in which they look at it is quite different. But primarily the Christian elements really do come in from the Fang tradition. That's really what they believe in. They believe that God is creator, God is source, and that's why they have all of those elements in all of their ceremonies. So yeah, that's really just been more of my experience. Sorry, I can't be more specific, but every lineage has its different belief systems. Yeah.
It matters for me because I had that vision of the serpent when Jeffy was being treated. And so it's some kind, and I've talked to people at different stages, like, oh, I don't want to go to Africa except to wherever that red and yellow serpent is, like whoever the people are who know what that is, then I'll go. But until that time, I'm not really interested in experience. It was like a warning or something. So thank you so much. And Revela Retreats is your place in Costa Rica?
Revela, yeah, REVELA retreats, yes, .com.
What part of the United States are you from? Your family? Where's your family buried?
My family's from upstate New York, and I most recently hail from Florida, so kind of like around the Panhandle area into here to Costa Rica. Mostly here now, full time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks
you're
a lot.
welcome. Mhm.
Rachel, I just want to share something about this whole serpent cosmology. It exists in many cultures, and perhaps rather than it be geographic for you in the serpent vision, it's really about energy, because the DNA is serpent-like and Kundalini energy, and that's all about serpents. And with ayahuasca, even a lot of times people will see serpents. It's a very common motif for transformation, because yeah, and even the caduceus symbol, which is a symbol on emergency medicine and healing, that has
Right.
two serpents crawling, going up the pole, and the pole is your spine, and the two serpents are the two hemispheres of your brain, or the yin and the yang, left and right, kind of coming together in cosmic union, and that's that inner union.
Yeah, I've been looking at it for a while as three serpents that go around the earth. One is from South America, one is in Africa, and one is maybe even four, because but for me it's the red and the yellow together making orange and a belt. And the stuff that's been coming up when I when I go Bible diving lately is the burning bush speaking to Moses in the desert. Those early speculations by Ruck and Beale at Chapel of Sacred Merits in 2004, 2005, but they've written about in other places, was that in fact the light that was shown on in that place to Moses as a prophet was some DMT containing bush, and that of course is like that whole area. But there's some images somewhere. It's sort of like Oribus, right? A snake biting its tail, and metaphors.
Ouroboros.
Right. So it's not just having the nervous system and the asana practice to hold the energy of Kundalini rising. It's specifically associated with like red asshole energy and yellow honoring the umbilical cord energy. And so for me right now, it's blurring in terms of orange. But there's other imagery of this like serpents around the belt of the earth from different parts of the earth. And I don't. Paul Featherstone, did we talk about this in terms of Australia? I don't know really enough about Aurora Terra and all this stuff over there. But yeah, this. I mean, I'm from Ireland, right? I mean, what part of my earliest ability to get my head around Catholicism was a book by a religious scholar named Mary Condren called The Serpent and the Goddess. And it was reevaluating the dominant imagery of St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland as being the ascendancy of a more patriarchal version of power. So like Moses has, like at some point, he gives a couple different signs, and then finally it's like hit your staff, turn into a serpent to show the people like the works, and then grabbing the serpent by the tail, which seems a lot like Kundalini energy practice. For me, it's that maybe that those different kinds of vipers still exist in the jungle regions that still belt the earth. So if one of our priorities is in supporting indigenous communities and keeping the forested, then that serpent, those different serpents, and the way they lock heads and tails all around the middle of Mother Earth matters. My vision, it was biting my head off, and I opened my eyes. So, but I have those headless things all the time. I had it yesterday and something else.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, I've had that happen to me, biting your head off. It's like, and I think that the symbolism of that biting the head off is for you to grow a new mind. That's what it is.
Okay, but then I had I had
Well,
a
I'm
dream.
just,
Yeah, no, but I mean, I've been having the headless horseman dream since I was like 18. Like I didn't want to go to college because there was a conveyor belt of hawks, and 6 of them had their heads cut off. And I woke up And I was like, they're going to cut my head off when I go to college. But anyway, that's not the point of this question of the conversation. And I'm turning all red now.
It's not. Well, thank you. We have 10 more minutes. If somebody has any questions, otherwise, maybe Paul Featherstone could come and say hello, or if somebody else wants to say hello, who works with the medicine, who's in the audience. But questions first, if anyone has questions for Tracy. Thanks, Rachel.
I have a few questions. Hey, Tracy, this is Ricky. Just say thank you for coming on today. It's been awesome hanging out with you. And it seems like it would be totally cool to go like on some type of expedition with you sometime. I don't know. Have you ever considered like guiding someone to like a tribe in wherever, just like doing something like that? Or do you do that?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I had some requests from clients actually. And so definitely, I think it has to be the right person. And sometimes people always say, I'd love to do Iboga for the first time in Africa. And I always sort of just discourage that. I said, please, oh gosh, do it in a Western way first, right? Where we can make sure that you are safe before you go there because the conditions are hard. But for sure, yeah. Oh, interested in that.
Cool. Well, and I was also wondering, for those of us who might like to look into this, anything about this more, it's at least for me, it's been kind of hard to find a lot of information on the internet. So I guess I'd like to open this question up to like even Patrick, Michelle, and Iwan if they would like to drop some things in the chat. But are there like any sources or anything, any like title names or anything or websites you recommend visiting for us who like to look more in depth to this at all? Anything come to mind?
Well, go to awake.net. That's where all these people are at this link that I just put up there.
Okay. I'll check that out then. Oh yeah, Tracy. Well, yeah, I'd also like to thank you, Lakshmi, for helping organize all this as well. It's become apparent throughout this that, you've been helping put this together, so I also wanted to give thanks to you. And I was just wondering if there may be like any handles we could follow you guys on after this just to keep up with what you're working on or anything like that, like a mailing list of some sort.
Who are you talking to me or to Tracy?
Oh, to Tracy and Lakshmi, please.
Yeah, surely I have some things. I am notoriously a terrible marketer. My staff always says, you need more Instagram post. But certainly we're now just starting a newsletter, so can get your information and do that as to like what we're currently working on. Happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I can drop my email in the chat. And Lakshmi, is there any way we could follow you anywhere?
Well, I just put this link in here for awake.net, the directory. You can join Awake for free, and then you can find all the people who are speaking in these panels on there. And the reason I created it like that is because it's hard to find people, or you lose the connection, or people are not good marketers or whatever. So I've created a sort of a well of knowledge. That's what we're creating on Awake, is a well of knowledge and like a living library of mentors and masters who have been working with these medicines for a long time. And we're focusing on Iboga and Ibogaine right now, but we're also bringing in people who work with other medicines because it's a journey. And as people have said, the Ibogaine interruption is just the beginning. And then or whether it's Iboga, it's the beginning of a journey, or you might already be on a journey, but it's the beginning of more intensity if you've never done psychedelics before. More intensity to your journey, and it's profound. The whole thing is profound, and so as it approaches a wider audience, I feel like we need to educate people, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, the marketing part of it, I just want to say it is a lot of work, and it's a big sacrifice for me because I'm a mystic. I like to do journeys. I like to write poetry. I'm an artist, and for me, it's a lot of work that I'm putting in it's really like, because I see that needs to be done. Not exactly my favorite thing, but it needs to be done, you know, so I'm doing it. So just so that people understand, when I'm saying things like go to Awake, I'm not trying to push or sell anything. I'm just trying to build this community quickly.
It's great to know that you have this website. Like, this is my first time here. I know I'm asking everybody, oh, can I get your info? How can I follow you? This and that. So it's really good to know that. And yeah, thank you furthermore, Lakshmi, for putting that intention out and doing the work to have us all here. Much appreciation and love. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time.
Thank you all. And thank you, Garrett. Thank you, everyone who's here. Iwan, I keep saying your name wrong. Sorry. Okay, so I think
Thank
we
you,
can.
Lakshmi. Sorry, I was trying to unmute my computer, my partner's computer.
Oh.
She wants to keep in touch with, is it Tracy? Tracy? No.
Yes.
Yeah, Tracy. Sorry. It's been a very long day for me. So yeah, Nancy's actually sent you a message on here. She's very
Okay.
keen. She can see some some interesting parallels between the both of you.
Okay, great.
So yeah, she's really keen to connect. So I just wanted to say thank you as well for what you shared with us this evening.
Absolutely. And
Been
thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
So
It was really
who knows,
interesting.
you know, because this is a big community now, huge network of practitioners, you know,
Yes.
and I feel like there's people of real integrity here. And that's a very valuable thing. That's probably the most valuable thing right now is people of integrity doing this work. And so
Absolutely.
this is a beautiful opportunity for us to remember why we're here, and also, you know, to be open to collaborations, future, you know, all sorts of possibilities. Just like what we when we met in Mexico, Lakshmi, you know, all the possibilities that opened up from that meeting. So I just wanted to say thank you, and nice one, Lakshmi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ricky, keep in touch. Ricky, thank you, and please keep in touch. You've got my email, haven't you?
I've got it, brother. Thank you very much.
Amazing. I've got your email. I'll be sure to forward you the newsletter, and I'll keep you updated with all future works. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you want to chat or anything like that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, bro.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excuse me, Lakshmi. I know that you're recording this, and there's so many great resources in the chat. When does that transcript of the chat go on the YouTube or whatever? Because a couple of people couldn't make it today, and I was like, oh, there's all this cool stuff in the chat.
So it's all going to be on awake.net, and it'll be under the name of this event, all about Iboga, and then there will be a Zoom recording link that has all the chat transcripts in it. So yeah, you can find it all there.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you could just go there and search. That's probably the easiest way to find it. It'll be up in probably by tomorrow or day after. All right, so next time I'll be sending out who the speakers are, etc. But we're going to be doing this every Thursday for 2 hours, and we're going to have, you know, different people come on and share their background and story. So I look forward to gathering a whole bunch of wonderful talks there. So thank you, Tracy. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, everybody, so much. It's really good to be here.
Thanks, Lakshmi, for hosting.
Yeah, thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Gareth.
Be well.